Good evening. It is June 25th, 2012. This is the North Kingstown School Committee. This is a business meeting. Tonight, it is basically, we thought tomorrow night would have too many things on the agenda to cover everything in one night. So this is the beginning of the business meeting. We will, when we adjourn tonight, we will come back, and tomorrow we will go over the rest of our business meeting. So I've called the meeting to order. If everyone would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lorraine, if you could call the roll, please.
Linda Avanzado. Here. Benson.
Didn't hear you.
Are you here? John Biscardin.
Here.
Larry Cerisi.
Here.
William Munch.
Here.
Kimberly Page.
Here.
Richard Welsh.
Here.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Thank you, Mrs. Benson. We're going to jump into citizens' comments. So if we could. As a reminder, citizens' comments are a time for the citizens to come up and comment at the mic. We will not be responding back. All citizens' comments are given 3 minutes to tell us what you feel like you wish to tell us. And I'll read off the names, the ones coming up, so people will know when it is, who is the next person. So, the first person is Brian LaCroix.
Okay, comment, just one comment, please.
Well, no, this is citizens' comments.
I understand.
Mr.
My question is, why can't we respond to comments from the folks that come up here?
Because that's the way we've been doing it all along, that it's the citizens' times to comment to us.
Is that against
We will
Robert's
have
rules?
plenty of time.
Is it against
that when we
Robert's
just-
rules of order or the state regulations for us to comment?
No, but it's what we've been doing it as part of our meeting here, so we're not going to comment. It's their time to talk to us, not our time. We get plenty of time to talk throughout the meeting. This is their time.
But we never have a chance to respond to them with their questions.
Madam President.
That is right.
Madam Chair.
And if you would like to do that privately on your own time, you may, but we're not going to take that out tonight. So
Want to
this
do that
is their
publicly?
time to tell us what they think and what
Madam
they want to
President.
talk. Yes, Mrs.
I think
Benson.
they want some answers.
I'm sorry, Mr.
I
LaCroix.
checked with the open meeting law, and there is a provision. We cannot vote on what they say, but
That is
there
correct, and we're not going to vote on what they say.
But there is a provision that if we want to ask them a question so that we'll better understand what they're saying, we may ask them.
That's correct.
Madam Chair, that's not your policy. This is not open forum where there's a give and take and question
Excuse
and
me,
answer.
counsel.
This is
What
citizens'
is Rhode Island state law say?
Mrs. Carroll is talking right now.
I know
so
it,
you need to
but
let
she's
her-
quoting-
No,
She's not
it's
quoting-
her turn to talk.
Madam, she's not quoting
It's
Rhode
her
Island
turn to
general law.
talk, and we have to give everybody their turn, or we won't be able to get through this meeting tonight. Now, I know that
Violating our
emotions are
open
going to be
meetings
running
law.
high tonight, and I would just ask that everyone take their turn. This is the citizens' time. It's their time to talk. We will have plenty of time to talk on the things on the agenda.
It's not
So,
we,
this
it's
is
us and them.
citizens. And it's our time just to listen.
And it's our time to respond.
You will have time to respond when the votes come.
No,
You're
to
talking
their
about
comments.
things. So I'm going to rule any school committee member who tries to have it engage in a discussion out of order. It's just the citizens' times to talk and our time to listen.
Okay, good.
And so, Madam President, you're telling me that you're going to violate state law.
No.
Don't wait to be recognized.
Mrs. Benson, it's not a violation of state law. As a matter of fact, there's no state law that even requires
No,
citizens'
there
comments.
isn't. I checked
This
on it,
com-
but the open meeting
A
law.
meeting of the school committee is a meeting held in public, not a meeting of the public. You and your policy allow for citizens' comments, but you don't have to. So there's no law that even allows for citizens' comments. Tonight, you have several citizens who want to speak, and they are being allowed to speak, But under citizens' comments, it's not a given cake. That's not an open forum as it is on some agendas.
But we can
Furthermore,
also
the
allow
law
them-
says you don't
Mr.
need
Mudge,
to
so I
have
can hear
citizens'
her
comments.
appointment. Hear her.
All right, I'm going to get started with citizens' comments. Mr. LaCroix, thank you for being so patient. And the next one after that is Patty Kerwin.
Good evening. Brian LaCroix, 53 Sunnybrook Drive. I'm also a special education teacher here at the high school for the last 24 years, and I'd like to say it is an excellent high school. It's an excellent school district. School district charged with creating first-rate citizens, and I believe we do a good job of that. What concerns me is these first-rate citizens that we are exiting from our high school. We hope that they will get first-rate jobs, be contributing members of our society. It's an important charge for us. But I believe that as a community, our charge goes beyond that. We want our students to graduate, go on and get those first-rate jobs. But now, the town, unfortunately, is considering creating second-rate jobs. We have a great number of people who have dedicated many, many years to working in this school district, helping us to create those first-rate citizens. And now we're putting them into a position where they may become second-rate employees. And I think that's a shame. I think there are things that we need to do as a community that go beyond. And I understand the difficulty of financial considerations. And it certainly would be easier to understand, I think, if I were an employee of Central Falls, West Warwick. They struggle much more financially than this town does. This is North Kingstown. And I'm a taxpayer here, and I believe that we have a responsibility not just to those students that we're trying to help be successful in life, but to the employees who have dedicated themselves to this town as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's Patty Kerwin, and then next is Paul Plunkett.
Patty Kerwin, 605 Oak Hill Road. I'm a teacher in North Kingstown for over 20 years, and I have the pleasure of knowing many of our custodians because I travel between schools. Doug and Tony at Hamilton Elementary School, you can hear Tony singing in the hallways. When Doug comes to empty my trash at the end of my day, the ESL kids jump up and want to show him something special they've written. Pedro and Robin at Stony Lane, always smiles, professional. And I'm there for only an hour every day, but there's never a day that goes by that I don't see Pedro totally available up in front. Sandy at Wickford Middle School sends us emails telling us when there's only going to be 2 people on that day, or she's going on vacation, or whatever. Great communicator. Tony at DMS opens the doors after hours for me with a smile, helps out with the international picnic. And they are part of our school life. They are part of our culture. And they have great exposure to our children. So my fear is when you outsource, you have people in and out, and you don't know who's being exposed to the children. Sometimes Pedro opens the doors, and there's a child there before school hours, and he's there with that child alone. It's something to consider. I'm also worried about the stress of our staff. With teacher evaluations this year, I saw a different culture in the schools. Think about that when these beautiful people are gone, and we have people that we don't know, and it's going to change things. My husband works for a company that outsourced recently, and he says the service is substandard, and they've lost their quality control. One lawsuit in this town with this company will undo all of what we think we're going to save. And in the end, you get what you pay for. Thank you.
Paul Plunkett and then Nancy Saccone.
Mr. Chairman, before I begin, I signed up, well, I guess while you were in executive session and everyone was outside, I neglected to sign up my one of my neighbors in Shore Acres, Anna Rotundo, and I tell you that because I'm going to take more than 3 minutes, and she's going to yield her time to me. I do have one question before I begin. How many people signed up tonight for to speak?
If I have another sheet down here, but if anybody hasn't signed up on this sheet yet.
So would 25 people?
No, 14.
14. I'm a little, frankly, of course you can make the rules, but limited to 3 minutes, I think is a little bit cumbersome for those who have more points to make than 3 minutes can allow. I'd ask if the chair would be somewhat lenient in those who need more time, particularly when there's only 14 or perhaps maybe another half a dozen more that haven't signed up that are going to speak. I think we may need a little more time. I know I do. So with that, I'd like to begin to say that my name is Paul Plunkett. I have 4 children that I've raised by myself here in town for the last 14 years, 2 of whom are still in the school system here. And I have 3 registered voters in my home. You all need to remember that. And I bet everyone here, for every person here, they represent 10 other people who feel the same way they do. So that's something to think about come November. I'm here to address you on the matter of privatization of the janitorial staff. I've lived in North Kingstown ever since I was born and continue every summer and continuously since 1978. It's safe to say that I've been here longer than all of you, and I'll be here long after you're gone. So, I don't know any of these janitorial staff personally. I don't know one personally. If I know any of them personally, I didn't know they were a janitor. I don't know one of them, okay? I'm speaking on my experience. I'm speaking on my studies over the years and my observations and my experience in North Kingstown and my experience with the state. I worked at the state legislature for 20 years. I did research, the legal research and issue research on everything from soup to nuts, including the operations of state and local government, including specifically privatization. My last 2 years, I was legal counsel to the Senate Majority Leader. So I have a fair amount of experience with regard to the operations of state and local government. And on the issue of privatization, I'm here to tell you with first-hand observation, in terms of saving money, it simply doesn't work. What happens is initially, you'll see the cutting all the staff folks. You'll see, oh yeah, we're going to save some money. We know we can go to contract. You know now the range of what the contracts are going to cost you. So you know you're going to save money initially, at least for the first 3 years, 3 to 5 years. But after that, my observation with state government and with municipal governments, after 3 to 5 years, it almost invariably ends up costing you more. And in some cases, because of who knows what insider things or well-crafted contracts by well-thought-out attorneys with cost overruns and whatnot, the privatization ends up costing more, in some cases in as little as a year. So don't be fooled that privatization is a cure-all and an end-all. It just isn't. And it'll save some money in the short term typically, but after a 3 to 5 year period, and contracts coming up again, invariably it ends up being more. So what happens? What happens when you privatize? And this is my observation. I'm seeing it firsthand on the state level and the local level. First of all, many people, local people, like for instance, I assume many of these people here are, they lose their jobs. They lose their livelihood. They lose their health insurance. They lose the expectation of their retirement plan. I bet all of you here have a retirement plan. I know some of you do. I know some of you work for state and municipal government. And many of you are going to have your health insurance paid the rest of your life. Not all these people are going to have their health insurance paid the rest of their life if their jobs are eliminated. What happens is that private contractor, in this case for janitorial staff, they come in, they hire low-wage or minimum-wage workers with no benefits. Sure, they're saving money. That's where the savings coming from, no doubt about it. And that private contractor gets rich. Typically, he's politically connected. I'd be shocked if whoever gets this contract is not politically connected. And I can assure you, having done a great deal of political consulting myself, I can assure you, if he's not politically connected, he surely will be politically connected in no time, because that's how he's going to keep the contract. So, it's just the nature of the beast. So what I want to know is, when does the little guy count? When does the average person count here? There are reasons why government hires employees. We see it across our state and our federal government. There's a reason why Washington pumps federal money into the states. It's specifically so that, and for private projects, for road construction, it's specifically to fire the economy, to make those jobs, and make that money turn over and produce more tax dollars. There's a reason for it. That's part of the fabric, our economic fabric. It's part of what drives our economy. To just eliminate these people as a group, well, gee, maybe they're a little disenfranchised. I don't know if they even have a union, but you know, in some sense, maybe they're low men on the table, on the totem pole, so they're an easy target, aren't they? But you know what? Someday, you folks could all be the target. Think about that. It's only a matter of time. When do you draw the line? When do people count? Our I applaud all of you, and I applaud the town council. It's tough. Budget times are tough. I worked up in the legislature when money's tight. It's no fun. It takes all the joy out of it. So these folks here, I believe they're well-intentioned, but it's no fun for them either, I assure you. It's very difficult, and I know that they've all worked really hard and done really well to get to where they are, and I give them certainly a great deal of credit for that. However, there is a point where we just can't look at the numbers and just forget about people. When do people count? We're in a society here where it's driven by selfishness and greed. All you have to do is look in Washington to see what goes on there. It's all about money. It's all about being lied to. You wonder why people don't trust government? You can see it on the 6 o'clock news every night. You're being lied to by government. Why do our kids lie? Why? It's all over TV. You see the politicians doing it. When do people count? When does the little guy count? I think this town has had a distinct character and a distinct quality of life, which is, frankly, a lot of it's been lost with development and whatnot. I'm sad to say. We, in the name of generating a bigger tax base, we've lost the character of our town, sadly.
Mr. Plunkett, can you wrap it up? You've had more than your 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is still America, so you know what? When I want to speak, I'm going to speak. And if you want to escort me out, you can escort me out. But I will tell you that these folks, they're part of the fabric of our community. And I don't know one of them personally. But I can tell you one thing.
Thank you, Mr. Plunkett. I need to move on.
Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up now, okay? So, when I come to events at the school, the janitorial staff has always been kind and courteous and helpful. And I don't know that you're going to get that with an outside contractor. You got people that are probably scared and happy to have a job at minimum wage. It's going to be a little bit different flavor. These people know the faces and the kids personally, and something's lost there. And these people do count.
All right, Mr. Plunkett,
I'm not finished
I've asked
yet.
you twice.
Okay, you're going to have to escort me out the door. I have a couple more things to say, and if that's not, if you're not going to,
I need you to yield your time.
Anna Rotundo has yielded her time to me, so I'm going to continue to speak for a couple
So I
more
need
minutes.
for somebody else
A few months
to
ago,
be able to
I
come
was
up,
here
Mr.
to.
Plunkett.
You folks want me to stop talking? Okay. A few months ago, I was here to drop off one of my daughters who was volunteering for a fundraiser.
Point of order. We need to maintain order of the meeting, please.
Yes.
Can you please wrap it up?
I am wrapping it up. A few months ago, I was here to drop off one of my daughters who was volunteering for a fundraiser here. My kids volunteer for many fundraisers
Madam
here
Chairman?
over the years.
Yes.
Yes. Would you call a recess so the policeman can escort Mr. Plunkett out of the auditorium?
I'm not going to start escorting people out of the auditorium, but Mr. Plunkett, I need you to yield the time to somebody else.
This day, my car was overheating, and I needed water for my car because it was overheating.
So
I wasn't going to go home.
that
I
you
could not
sit
find
down,
a water spigot here, but
and I'm gonna
I
ask
found a
that somebody
janitor,
else be
and that
able to
janitor
speak.
led me to a water spigot, and I was
Thank you,
able to get a
Mr.
couple of
Plunkett.
jugs of water so I could drive my car home.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Plunkett, they don't want to listen to you.
Oh, I am, but they're going to hear me.
Mr.
So,
Plunkett, I'm
the thing
asking
is-
you to sit down.
I apologize for that, too.
My question is, when does the little guy...
Thank you, Mr. Plunkett. I have Nancy Saccone, and then I have Pat Saccone.
Good evening, Nancy Ciccone. I'm a paraprofessional at Hamilton Elementary School. Before the arbitrator's decision has been disclosed to the public, it most affects the superintendent, along with some members of this committee. Think now is the time to make more drastic reductions to the NKESP. Throughout my 8 years of service to this community as a paraprofessional, I've gone to work and always given my best. The usual things you may think of: supervising students before school, at lunch, at recess, providing academic supports in reading and math to students who perform below grade level. Those are some basics, and they're clearly stated in our job description. Less often acknowledged and less known to the general public are the emotional and behavioral supports we provide to an albeit relatively small segment of the student population. This has become an increasingly large component of our job. I have been hit, kicked, punched, shoved, bit, spat on, threatened with physical violence, and verbally demeaned by some of the district's most difficult students. Sometimes all of those things in one day. I have risked injury to myself to keep these students and their classmates safe. Paraprofessionals are constantly on, always trying to anticipate students' possible responses to possible situations which may or may not ever arise, perpetually strategizing what to do or what to say to keep a student from going into crisis. I come home physically and emotionally drained. Daniel Harvey, licensed clinical social worker and professor of social work at Rhode Island College, presented a workshop to us regarding students with mental health issues on one of our professional development days. I learned a lot that day, but one thing really stood out. Professor Harvey told us that paraprofessionals often suffer from type 3 trauma, also called vicarious trauma. It affects people who work in the social services. It results from being repeatedly exposed to the traumas of those you support. There are mornings that I wake up with an aching body and a crushed spirit, but I summon the strength and the perseverance to go in and face the day with a positive attitude, ready to give every ounce of energy to the general student population as well as to the specific students that I support. Despite the challenges associated with working with this growing and challenging population, I know that I've made positive differences in the lives of the children I assist. Not only can I see the changes in these students, but their parents thank me for my efforts because they also recognize the positive differences in their child. The student I worked with this year, he told me at the end of the school year he was proud of himself for the successes he made academically, behaviorally. He thanked me for being a good friend to him this year and told me he couldn't have done it without me. For the services listed above and for the type 3 trauma I am exposed to, you, the North Kingstown School Department, pay me approximately $15,000 a year. If you ask for a 20% cost share of my health insurance, I will now bring in about $11,000 a year. That's about $60 a day, $10 an hour. Can you honestly say that all I contribute is worth that? In addition, you want to take away one personal day and 3 sick days? With the physical and mental stress I'm repeatedly exposed to, that's unconscionable. Oh, and surprise, you don't want to give me a penny more, even though this committee voted in favor of salary increases to some administrators. This is my story. Every paraprofessional, every clerk, every custodian, every maintenance worker, every minibus driver here has a story of their own that they could tell you. We don't earn a lot of money for what we do. We work hard. I wouldn't expect a salary increase in this poor financial climate. But I would ask each and every committee member on this stage to please reflect on the support that we provide. I implore you to consider leaving our salary, our cost share, our personal and sick days alone. Please do not try to balance the budget on the backs of the lowest paid workers.
Pat Saccone, and then Sandy Blankenship.
at Ciccone Stony Lane School. And for those of you who don't know, that was my daughter that just spoke, and I am damn proud of her. A lot of the things she said were the same things I was going to say, so I'm not going to repeat them. As you know, we've all worked hard all year, working in good faith that you were working hard to negotiate our contract. Our contract has gone to arbitration, and although at the time this agenda was set, no decision had been rendered by the arbitrator, you have items on there to take away things from us, things that we got in previous contract negotiations in lieu of other stuff that we gave up. I think it's very unfair to try to take those things away from us. That kind of shows us that regardless of what a contract says, we can't count on it. You're going to do what you want to do with it. As far as the custodians go and the kitchen workers, a lot was said about them, and all of it true. We have custodians at Stony Lane who stay and do things on their own time, things that they don't have to do, things that they don't get paid for doing. Outside people are not going to do that. They're not going to know our children's names the way these custodians do. I don't see an outsider coming up to me and saying, oh, I think Mary just went over to sit with a friend at the peanut butter table and Mary's allergic to peanuts. Are they going to know those facts? I don't think so. Our people know because they pay attention to where our kids are sitting and what they're doing all day long. I would like all of you to come into school when school is back in session. Follow around one of the paraprofessionals for a day and see what happens. How would you like to change a diaper full of feces on a 12, 14-year-old, 16-year-old child? Do you want to change dirty sanitary pads on a teenage girl who can't do it? I think a lot of you would walk out the door. You wouldn't be willing to do the things that we do for the children. And not only do we do them, we love the kids. That's why we do these things for them. Right now, morale is at rock bottom for all of us. We try our best. We feel completely unappreciated. We are the little fish in the big pond. We are the lowest paid people here. And you want to take things away from us? This district has a very strict policy about not tolerating bullying. You people sitting up there with all the power, that's exactly what you're doing. You're bullying us. When the kids at my school, I see bullying taking place, I jump in. I protect the child that's being bullied. I take the bulliers to the principal, and he deals with them. Unfortunately for us, we're being bullied, but we don't have a principal to run to, nobody to protect us. So before you make any final decisions, I hope you think long and hard. Remember that we are human beings. We deserve to be treated with respect and not be bullied because we're the little guys in the big pond. Thank you.
Sandy Blankenship and then Laura Immoraldi.
Smeraldi, she said. Was her last
Sorry.
name. Sandy Blankenship, 103 Dodge Street. Obviously, we're here tonight because our hope is that you will accept the arbitrator's award. I've been sitting back here, listening to everything and watching your body language, and it doesn't seem like your body language is telling me that this is going to be a happy night for us. And if that's so, then I am imploring you to table everything you've got tonight and have an emergency meeting with us, because our custodians and our food service workers, they don't deserve to be handed over to a for-profit company who wants them to work for not a living wage, but poverty-level wages. It is going to affect not only them, It's going to affect their families. It's going to affect this town. It's going to affect this school district. So please, please, if you've already made up your mind and you've decided that your vote is going to go against this very generous arbitrators award, considering we are the lowest paid people in this district, then I implore you to table everything and you have that emergency meeting with us in the next 24 hours. Thank you.
Next will be Tina Bilodeau after Laura.
Hi, my name is Laura Smeraldi, 97 Sweet Lane. I was a paraprofessional for 13 years, union president of the ESP group for 4 of those years. In the words of a school committee member in Richmond, Virginia in 2005, just before the board voted to cancel a contract with Chatwell, a large international food service provider, we've been duped, we've been had, we've been hoodwinked, we've been suckered. In a study to assess the New Haven, Connecticut plan to privatize custodial staff entitled Pushing Working Families into Poverty, the following was reported. There is no hard evidence that outsourcing is a potential cost saver. A 2001 national survey published in American Schools and Universities found that since 1993, the percentage of schools opting to outsource has dropped. The race to the bottom goes something like this. Privatization reduces salary and benefits, which leads to high turnover, which creates the frequent need to fill vacancies at the expense of proper screening, adequate background checks, or training, which then increases turnover rates, and so on and so on. Facing the possibility of reduced salary and benefits places veteran employees in a very difficult situation. Stay and try to make ends meet, or try to find work elsewhere. Oh, wait, they should be counting their blessings that they have a job to begin with. The economic fallout of low wages and benefits extends well into the community, not just impacting the individual. Those employees who are hired back are looking at the potential to lose overtime pay, bonuses, and retirement benefits. Those at the bottom of the salary scale pay less taxes, are more dependent on social services, and contribute less to the local economy. Simply put, privatization reduces costs by paying people less. Where does it end? In some states, they've already allowed outsourcing of curriculum, professional development, tutoring, substitute teachers, and specialized teachers such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech. This is your slippery slope, people. Studies have shown that potential problems that come with privatization are hidden cost, quality control, administrative time problems, social cost, and reduction of control with restricted flexibility. A research paper done by the Great Lakes Center for Education Research and Practices states, and I quote, "A school cannot merely be a collection of subcontractors providing services at the same location. A successful school models healthy social behavior as well as teaching children to be good citizens. A school is not only in the community, it must be of the community." In the absence of conclusive research, I urge the school committee to be cautious about claims made by privatizing companies and their advocates. I would also caution those companies interested in doing business with North Kingstown to take note of how North Kingstown conducts business with its current employees.
Bilodeau, and then Stephanie Weber.
Hi, my name is Tina Bilodeau. I do not live in North Kingstown, but I have been an employee here at Hamilton for 7 years. I am currently the NK ESP of the Year. I had an opportunity once to work at Charahoe School District, and I chose North Kingstown, and I'm glad I did. I have really 2 points to make. One, I want to say I've been with Nancy Ciccone in a room, the timeout room, that is cement with carpet over the walls. I have been pushed, I have been shoved, kicked, everything Nancy said. 2 other people were in the room with me. They wanted me out of that room because that child was coming for me. Someone who is taller than I am and way younger than I am. And when I left that room, I heard Nancy being pushed up against the wall, slammed up against the wall. That's what we do. That's what it's come down to in some instances. But you know what? It's not always like that. We meet with these kids every day. We're the first ones to see them when they get off the bus. When we look at them and that child is being brought in with their mother from their own car and she is crying, we know that that little girl is having another bad day. And we try to make her smile. And most of the time, we do get that smile. Paraprofessionals teach respect and manners. We teach problem-solving skills, and not just in math. We come in early and stay late. We teach conflict resolution, those strategies to stop bullying. Stop bullying, help the bystander, and help the victim of the bullying. We're involved with the PTO. We promote school spirit. We keep in touch with that student that changed my life because I made an impact on his life. And I will be there when he graduates from NK High School. We're the first to find out that that child, I worked with Nancy's child last year, and you know what we went through? Homelessness. He was homeless. That child came in with that, and we deal with that. Not because we have to, but because we want to, and we care for these children as if they are our own children. We also go to Special Olympics events for a student that you had 3 years ago. We stay after school to work, and we come in early. We go to open houses. We go to school functions. We take pictures for the yearbooks, where the PTO is asking us for our pictures. We dry a tear. We impact the lives of these children. So please, please, reconsider the cuts that you have on the table for the paraprofessionals, for the custodians, for everyone in the lowest paid group of people in this district. The other point I wanted to make, this is going to be a quick one, that this was said at the June 12th meeting, and I quote, and Mr. Cerisi, you said this at the 12th meeting, I would like to see the district continue to do business with this contractor, and for the sum of 0.5 cents per gallon, I'm not willing to sacrifice doing business with an in-district contractor who has a proven, excellent track record in their performance with the district. And I think bringing in another contractor who does not have the history and familiarity with the district could possibly result in some additional costs. This comment was made over septic systems, feces. I don't know, I'm not privy to how much you guys are saving, we're going to be saving on this outsourcing of custodials, but come on, this comment was made about feces. And I think you really seriously need to think about that before you make any decisions.
Stephanie Weber, and then Mary Barden.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Weber. Excuse me, I'm not, public speaking is not my forte, but I hope that I can keep some of your interest, as some of you seem more interested in other things up there. But, I am from Fishing Cove Elementary. Some of you know me personally. I've worked with some of your students for many years. I stand before you as a member of this community who is on both sides of the table. I am a taxpayer, a parent of a 2012 graduate of North Kingstown High School, a parent of a son entering North Kingstown High School, an employee of the North Kingstown School Department. I am a special education paraprofessional, and I have had this wonderful position for 10 years. In those 10 years, I have worked in the ASD program, the EDBD program, and I am now working in the self-contained preschool with Leslie Mayman. I stand here tonight fighting back lots of emotions. I am frustrated as a parent that, once again, cuts must be made, and you, of course, start with the sports program. I know that this is past, but this is my frustration with this. It's just ridiculous. Once again, it goes to the kids. I speak from experience when I say that there are many kids out there who need this type of discipline of juggling sports and school to help them maintain good grades. And my son is one of those kids. Not to mention that in this town, recreation sports ends at the age of 14. So this is their only place to play unless parents can afford private organizations. Now to my other frustration, the outsourcing of the custodians and the cuts you would like to make to our contract. I know that I am not alone when I say that it is very hard to live on what we make as paras. I personally make under $19,000 a year, and that is working the ESY program. I know the importance of consistency in the lives of special needs students, and that is why I do the ESY program. With making that salary and having a family and now paying for my daughter to go to college, and I must mention that she will be attending CCRI, as that is all we can afford, it is very hard to put any money away for our future, and now it is my understanding that you want to cut our life insurance, sick and personal days, and give us a 0% salary increase. I find it very frustrating that you all decide to make these cuts and don't even know what our jobs entail each day. I personally invite each and every one of you to follow me throughout my day for the 6 hours. That includes lunch recess with 3-year-olds. That includes every tantrum. That includes toileting. That includes anything that needs to be done, sensory, whether it's going to specials with them, OT, PT, anything. I love my job, and I couldn't think of a more rewarding position. But if these cuts continue to be made, I need to think about my family, and I may need to look into another career. And this, again, will only affect the children, not anyone up there. I know that the spending needs to stop, and I hope that you will look a little harder into the other areas where cuts can be made. Thank you. And in closing, I would like to read a little something from one of our parents of our room. She says, and I quote, this is very emotional for me, and she quotes, "I am blown away by the progress he is showing. I never would have expected this 6 months ago. Not only is he talking and verbally expressing, he is counting and learning. All I can say is thank you. It is teachers such as you and your staff that make the education system. I hope you understand how important you are to us." His vocals are amazing. He sings rhymes all the time, and again, I am speechless at the miracle you have given my child. So please, just remember that it is us, the paras, the teachers, the clerks, the custodial staff, that make our schools what they are. And we deserve to be treated fairly. And please take a moment and put yourself in our shoes before you make the decision. And the only reason that Fishing Cove is the way that it is because of our wonderful custodian, Brian Jennings. Thank you.
Mary Barden, and then Brian Jennings. Yeah. Yeah, after Mary Barden is Brian Jennings.
Hi, my name's Mary Barden, and I'm president of NEA North Kingstown. I'm also an 8th grade teacher at Davisville Middle School. I have a few things I would like you to consider tonight before making the decision regarding privatizing the North Kingstown School Department custodians. In a decision with such weight, I hope that you have carefully researched what our custodians do on a daily basis. I know that you've heard from my teaching colleagues about the importance of our custodial staff and how they go above and beyond. Has anyone spent a day with a member of the custodial staff to see what it is that they do and the value that they provide? If not, I would ask you to consider doing so before making this decision. Please make an informed decision tonight. Secondly, we have an excellent school system because all employees contribute to that success. Again, you've heard about the dedication and hard work of the custodians. Will our schools still operate in the same way and at the same level of excellence with a privatized custodial service? Lastly, some issues are about more than dollars and cents. Some are about what's right. I've heard the argument that almost every other school district in Rhode Island has privatized, but I would remind you what we tell our students. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't make it right. These are people who are members of our community. They are your neighbors and tax-paying citizens of North Kingstown. Please consider tonight whether this is right and what type of community you would like North Kingstown to be in the future. Thank you.
Brian Jennings, and then Margaret Cole.
I'm going to be very short. Good evening. I'm Brian Jennings, head custodian at Fishing Cove Elementary School. I've been an employee of the North Kingstown School Department for the past 27 years. The past 23 years, I've been the head custodian at Fishing Cove Elementary. I take great pride in being the head custodian of Fishing Cove, working with the faculty and the children, speaking on behalf of all the custodians. If you outsource, you will not get the dedication and the loyalty that you are receiving now. I ask that the school committee not privatize the custodial services. Thank you.
Margaret Cole, and then Robert Kurtz.
Hi, my name is Margaret Cole. I've lived in North Kingstown for 41 years, and I hope to continue living here. And I've worked at Davisville for 18 and a half years, and I love it, and I wish you'd consider us staying. Thank you.
Robert Kurtz, and then Sandra Tyler.
Good evening. Proud to be a North Kingstown resident. I'm very sad to say that the quality of life in North Kingstown would be degraded if you let the custodians go. They all contribute to this town financially. I'm sure they all pay taxes in the town. It would also be sad for the taxpayers in the town if the tax base drops lower. If the people start losing their jobs, then they can't afford to pay for houses. Then you have more vacant houses in town. Right now, I have 3 houses around me that have been foreclosed by banks because people can't afford to pay for their houses. If you let these custodians go, that'll be less tax revenue for the town of North Kingstown again. See, I have everybody's attention now, don't I? I can see everybody looking at that. Sad. Also, I've been in the custodial maintenance business for 24 years, working in the public schools. I work for the town of East Greenwich. I am the head custodian at East Greenwich High School. I've looked at this building. I look at the work they do. and they do a fine job, and you should take that into consideration. Thank you.
Andrew Tyler, and then Kimberly Ramos.
Yes, I'm Sandra Tyler. I work at Wickford Middle School. I've worked for North Kingston School Department for 25 years. And one quick point I'd like to make. Last year, at the beginning of school, a young lady walked into the school with her little daughter to register her daughter. And she saw me and she lit right up. She came over and she hugged me and said, "Hi, Mrs. Tyler, how are you? How are you?" Come to find out, she went to school with my daughter. My kids went through North Kingston School. She went to school with my daughter, and now she is bringing her daughter to my school. And she lit right up when she saw me because she was happy because her daughter was going to know somebody in the school. And I don't think you're going to get that from a private company. And I just hope that you all would reconsider privatizing the custodians and keeping us here, because you are going to miss a lot of what is necessary to make the system a whole. Thank you very much.
Kimberly Ramos, and then Steve Enright.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Ramos. I'm a second grade teacher at Forest Park Elementary. And initially I was here to speak against the privatization of the custodians. However, after hearing Nancy, Tina, and Stephanie all speak, professionals who I have worked with in my very own classroom over the last 15 years, I have to say that as teachers, we could not do our jobs without these people. In addition to their regular duties, our Forest Park custodians and paraprofessionals are trusted adults with whom our students make daily connections. For example, one of the opportunities our fifth grade student ambassadors enjoy is helping Mr. Tom with our school recycling program. Our custodians taught other fifth grade students the proper protocol for raising, lowering, and folding the school flag. One of my special needs students last year chose working with Mr. Tom at the end of the day as his reward for good behavior. When our PTO started a plant sale fundraiser, Mr. Tom volunteered to come to school before his shift to help our classes plant their seeds and checked in periodically to make sure the plants were growing properly. Earlier this year, when one of our first graders lost her very first tooth, she was devastated when she realized she had dropped it somewhere in school and cried inconsolably. That night, Mr. Tom got down on his hands and knees and checked every pile of dirt that he swept up and miraculously was able to locate that little girl's tooth. When desks need to be raised or lowered, tables and chairs located for newly enrolled students, staging and risers installed for performances, chairs set up for meetings and assemblies, carts assembled, and many, many tasks too numerous to list, our custodians are there for us. I've worked in 5 of North Kingstown schools over the last 15 years. I know this to be true of every single building in which I've worked. Our custodians and paraprofessionals are colleagues who do much more than scrub toilets, clean our floors, and watch our kids at lunch and recess. They are integral members of our school communities. Learning comes from experiences, not just books and academics. While you may save money by replacing them with minimum wage workers employed by a private for-profit company and cutting paraprofessional salaries benefits so deeply that they're forced below the poverty level, what you are giving up is invaluable: relationships between students and trusted adults. You get what you pay for, and yes, you may save a few bucks now, but at what cost to our children and our community? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve Enright.
Good evening. My name is Steve Enright, and this is my 43rd year of teaching, will be next year. And I harken back to my first day of teaching at High Point Elementary School in Maryland, when my principal, who had been a former Mother Superior, brought me into her office and said, "Shave your beard, get rid of the long hair." And she says, "But if you want to teach and do it well, The first person you get to know is the custodian. The second person you get to know is the cafeteria worker. The third person is my secretary. And then finally me. Because the school runs from the bottom up, not the top down. These people are my colleagues. I cannot do my job effectively or efficiently without everyone. You, myself and the rest of the teaching staff, the administration, the custodians, every worker in our building. You have a great school system. I've taught here now for 24 years. I taught at Whitford Middle and now Davisville Middle School. 2 schools that are declining as a physical plant, which makes it even more difficult for them to do their jobs. It is unethical and immoral to decide on a few pennies, let's outsource. My kids go to South Kingstown schools. They're really good, but I wish they had come here because the people here are incredibly dedicated to what they do. Please look inside your heart and your soul about what is right here in this community for your children, the teachers, and the children you represent, because most of these people live in the community where you do. Don't be the person that says, thank you very much, what's your hurry, take your hat, and don't get hit on the ass by the door on your way out. Thank you.
Right, that ends citizens' comments. We now move into...
Madam President.
So we're moving into the routine business.
Madam President.
I hear you, Mrs. Benson. We're moving into routine business.
I would like to make a point.
You'll have your chance to make a point, but
No,
this
I
isn't
will
the
not
time.
have my point, a chance to make a point.
No, not, but not right now, Mrs. Benson. I'm not going to recognize you right now.
Did not sign up. And I'm not going to stop until I say what I want. And when I speak for the people in this community.
But Mrs. Benson, you'll get your chance to speak.
Not
right
without
now,
them here.
I'm not going
and
to
I want you
recognize
to know.
No, thank you, Mrs. Benson.
And I want the
I'll
people
let
that
you
are here
speak
tonight to know
when we come
that
to
you did
time
an
to speak.
excellent
But
job.
this isn't your time.
And if they don't look
Thank you,
into
Mrs. Benson.
their heart,
Sounds like Nazism to me, man. Let the woman speak. It's still America.
Mrs. Benson, you'll get your time to speak, but this is not the time right now. So right now, we're going into routine items, and you'll be able to go when it is your time. Right now, we're moving on to the executive session. Lorene we need to take a vote to seal the executive minutes of June 25th, 2012?
Motion, that's correct, motion.
Is there a motion to seal?
So moved.
Second.
No.
So there is a motion and a second.
I didn't hear a second. Take a roll call vote.
I seconded it.
We'll take a roll call
You're not
vote.
ashamed to let the public know you seconded, are you?
I'm letting you
All right,
know.
all right. We don't
Not
need
me,
we
the
don't
public.
need this right now.
Linda Avanzado.
Yes.
Milgway Benson. How do you vote, Mrs. Benson?
Mrs. Benson, I believe that you were absent for most of the executive session, so
I
you
certainly
may want
was,
to
and I will
abstain.
not cast a vote.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
No.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
Is there any disclosure of executive session votes?
All members were present at tonight's executive session. Motion was made by Dick Welsh to adjourn executive session and go into open, seconded by Larry Cerisi. Motion passed 7-0. Thank you.
I believe that Mrs. Benson wasn't there. Am I correct?
You made a mistake. Yes, you're correct. I wasn't
Came
there.
in late, that's right.
I came in late.
6-0. Thank you.
All right, so now we go into unfinished business. The first item on our agenda is the consideration of the ESP arbitration award.
I'd like to make a motion, please.
I'm going to let Dr. Ajay speak first.
Good evening, everyone.
Excuse me?
I said I'm going to let Dr. Ajay speak first on what the arbitration award.
Today, as you know, we received the arbitration award, and both parties are privy to, what is finally disclosed. Just so that you're aware, this has been a process that's been a long, long time. And I think many of you are aware of this. About a year and a half of negotiation time has gone into this. A lot of waiting for different pieces of this puzzle to happen, starting with a long negotiation with many meetings, followed up with mediation, followed up with arbitration. And even then, right up until the very end of this year, here we are on June 25th, finally meeting about this. This is not, when we got the decision today, I think many of you are aware that when we're looking at taking care of our budget, that we are hoping as a school committee to make certain concessions from the ESP to help us reach budget. We have already come up with approximately $1.3 million in cuts. And there are other things waiting in the wings. And, some of you came up tonight and talked about how disappointed you are that we focused on sports. We did not focus on sports. We tried everything we could to avoid sports. There are so many pieces to this puzzle. There are so many different pieces to this school district, teachers and paraprofessionals and clerks and custodians and on and on and on. And to do this, to balance a budget, when every year the price, as we all know, the price of things goes up, and it goes up in a big way when you're talking about a school department. As you know, we have communicated right from the beginning. I was at a meeting with the town council in October talking about these issues, talking about the difficulty that we have had over the years. In the last 3 years, this year we had a 2% increase. With the cost of items rising, that doesn't even cover us. We still need to cut, even with a 2% increase. We asked for a 4%. Part of the reason for that, and that's as high as we could go, and that sounds like a lot in any given year. But consider this. We all know how much Blue Cross and health insurance costs in just every day, in all of our salaries, and the part of the budget that it is. It's a huge part of our budget. That alone rises more than 10% a year. In the last 3 years, it's risen 31%. In that same time, we got a 1.25% increase from the town 3 years before this one. It's impossible to sustain. So, at this point, there is a lot of cuts for ESP in front of us at the moment. But it also happens to be a timing thing. It's a contract year. In fact, it's 1 year later than a contract year. The contract was being negotiated, it was supposed to take effect last July 1st. And we've gone a whole year with nothing happening. So we've had a very difficult year budget-wise. I think you've read in the papers about a deficit. Part of that has to do with these negotiations. We were looking to make concessions a year ago, which would have resulted in at least about over $500,000, if not more. And none of that came in. So when you talk about what do we need to cut in this district, other things needed to be cut. Other things that the kids and the workers and the parents of this district care about very deeply. And they have certainly let us know about it, believe me. And what we have tried to do, what I have tried to do, is ask, please tell that to the town council. And, they don't have it easy either. They have enormous political pressure. It's a difficult economic climate. And they have enormous pressure on them to keep taxes low. We all live in this town. Nobody wants to pay more in taxes. So there's this circle. There's this tension that continues. And it's awful, but it's there. Over the past year and a half, this group has tried very hard We've met often. I've met several times, even after negotiations were done, with Sandy and Nancy, and tried to work on something that we could mutually agree upon. And we're very far apart, obviously, as you know. This is the most difficult work I've ever done in my life, trying to come to some kind of consensus that everybody can live with. But it takes, there's been a lot of options out there other than the kinds of things being proposed tonight, and they haven't been accepted. So now we're at a point where we desperately need to act. We need to make some moves tonight. And so, when we got the arbitration decision, we were hoping that something would come close, and perhaps there might be a deal struck. As it turned out, the decision, as it's written, lists about $621,000 worth of cuts. When we have gone over those cuts, and I'll have Mrs. King go over them in a minute, that were listed in the arbitration's decision, we looked to verify. A huge chunk of that was the difference in going from what is currently a 4% copay for health insurance to a sliding scale where the average is roughly 14 or 15%. That was seen as almost $300,000 in cuts on this list. The problem with that is that we've already budgeted for that piece. That's not included in the million that we're looking to achieve. So that what we've already budgeted with starting at 15%. And I'm just going over my points, please. So, when you look at what, and we're going to explain some of these points in a few minutes, when you look at what the arbitrator came through with, we're still very significantly apart. We're not close enough to strike a last-minute deal right now. I wish we were, but we're not close enough. And I know from my experience in trying so hard over this past year and a half, I just don't see that happening. So I'm going to ask Mrs. King right now to talk a little bit about some of the points that were presented on the arbitration proposal and the savings that were broadcast or were, mentioned in this arbitration finding, and what we are calculating as the actual reality of how these things are working out.
There were approximately 10 items per the arbitrator decision for a total of $621,805. The first item was a proposed sliding scale for health coverage in which lower-paid employees would pay less than higher-paid employees. The ranges were from 11% to 18% based on those salary ranges. As Dr. Auger indicated, 15% had already been budgeted that this group would go to. Therefore, the $296,000 that was proposed that would be a savings of the sliding scale, if we were to go to that scale, would actually cost the school department $28,000 to $36,000. The reason why there's the range is because it was not clear in the arbitrator decision whether or not that range was on base salary or if it was on total salary. The next area was proposed by the arbitrator as 3-hour food service employees would pay 100% of their health care for a savings of $66,156. This was based on 4 employees that the arbitrator felt fell in this decision. We could not corroborate that. We have 1 employee that falls into this category from our records, saving $16,250. The next category was 4.5-hour food service employees would pay 60% of their health care coverage, saving $24,805. We do agree with that. We're about a couple $100 apart on that. The other category would be that other part-time food service employees would pay 25% of their health coverage, saving $3,100 per the arbitrator. We actually see there are 4 employees that this would apply to, and that would save $4,000. The next category were non-food service part-time employees increasing their copay from 20% to 25%, saving $20,670. We were unable to corroborate this entire amount, as we show no employees in this category. The arbitrator showed 20. The arbitrator estimated that 2 custodian furlough days could save the school department $15,368. Based on the budgeted FY13 total payroll, we could only corroborate $9,259 of that amount. The next 4 items, we could corroborate all the amounts. Conversion of 2 full-time paras to 4 part-time paras, saving $66,158. Adjusting buyback rates, saving $31,613. Eliminating life insurance for all employees except for food service in this union, $33,925. Eliminate 1% salary increase for all those in this union except food service, $63,984. Again, the arbitrator's proposed decisions were saved $621,805. We could only corroborate approximately $214,000 to $222,000 of this amount, leaving a $400,000 variance in the numbers.
Thank you. The points that I'm trying to make in pointing this out is that one way or another, in the next few days, we're going to have to find roughly $1.6 million in cuts or in revenue to the district to make the rest of our budget. As you recall, we've already made $1.3 million. That's a lot of people and paraprofessionals and custodians and clerks and other things in this district, sports programs, and a lot of different areas have gotten hit. And we're still looking at $1.6 million. Now, and we'll go over this number as well, $570,000 of that has been approved by the state. We have to wait for the legislature to approve the increase in state aid that the governor had proposed. So that has come in.
Already done.
That's already done. So that leaves us with roughly $1 million left. And I'm going to have Mrs. King talk a little bit about the kinds of things that need to happen. But I need you to understand that only getting to $200,000 or $300,000 of that remaining dollars from these negotiations, after a year where we already budgeted for more than $500,000 to occur, and that didn't happen. So we've already done cutting. There have already been positions that we have not refilled. There have already been many supplies and everything I could possibly think of. I have a grievance in front of me because of smart boards that I promised to a number of teachers that I could not follow through on this year. We have another grievance coming about air conditioning. We have more demands about carpeting at Quidnesset Elementary School. All kinds of different things that will make work conditions better and make conditions better for our students that I have to wait on. Can't spend the money because we don't have it. And so now we are in the position of having to come up with these kinds of cuts. And again, this is a timing thing. This is a year that we're negotiating with ESP. In other years, similar cuts have taken place with the teachers' union, for instance. And, you know, employees in that union have gone back several $1,000s. And I know you're going to say, well, there isn't necessarily a fairness in terms of the people in this unit may make less money. And that's true. And I certainly sympathize with the people who've come up tonight. I do. The problem we face is that Blue Cross doesn't give us a discount for anybody in a position like that. And therefore, we have to find a way to make ends meet and to continue with programs, all of the programs that affect our kids. And many of them are by law, have to do them, can't touch them even if I wanted to. So obviously, these points are really difficult. And we have searched everywhere in this budget. We have scoured everywhere, and there are some areas that we've cut, and truthfully, I really don't know how the heck we're going to make it. So we have to be very careful. We just spent a year fighting with the town over a deficit, and it's no fun. And you're wondering if you're going to be able to, you know, make ends meet by the end of the year. And we're going to make it this year, but it's because we've done a lot of cutting, and a lot of things that we would normally like to pay for have not happened. And we, you know, so we're trying to do as much as we can with less. That's the way things are working out. So I'm going to recommend that based on what we've gotten back for an arbitration decision and how far it is from what we need to do, that the committee vote to reject that arbitration decision right now. That is my proposal.
I'm sorry that we're not going to be taking questions from the audience. All right, we have the item on the agenda is now, we're coming up to
the audience,
unfinished
do you
business.
see the discourteousness up here?
And we have consideration of the vote of the ESP arbitration award. The superintendent has made a recommendation not to accept the award.
I'd like to
Do I
make a
have
motion, please.
Mr. Mudge, what is your
I'd like to
motion?
make a motion to accept the award that was presented today, provided the union folks would abide by that award and not go back to court. So
Do you
I would
have
like
a-
to put on the table that we accept the union's award. I believe there is sufficient funds to accommodate this, so I will speak to that when my motion is discussed.
I second that for the purpose of discussion.
So there's a motion on the floor and a second. It is now open for discussion.
Anyone want to start?
Yeah.
Go ahead, somebody else want to start.
Mr. Mudge, I would like you to please explain to us where the balance of the savings are going to come if we accept the,
Well, thank you, I will, and I'll need more than 2 minutes, 3 minutes also. Let's go back and look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a budget that was submitted to the town council of $57,307,000. I beg your pardon, I'm reading last. $58,730,000 and change. That's the school committee's budget. That is the school committee's budget that they said and that we approved. The town council gave us $57,243,000. That was with the understanding that they would get additional state aid, and that's coming in at about $570,000. So we did have a shortfall of roughly $106,000, but essentially the shortfall is down to $1 million for this year. $1 million. I think we're running about $1 million in our surplus today. Okay? That's without doing anything. Now, I don't know what the fiscal year 12 surplus is going to come in at, or what our expenditures are going to be. So what I'm saying is, I believe there is sufficient funding to award this contract and meet the challenges of the fiscal year 13 budget without even exercising things that I fought for before. We're giving Jamestown between a $300,000 and $400,000 break on the tuition rate. Yet we'll take it away from our kids out here and our folks. People that work hard for us. Jamestown is a much wealthier community than we are, and we're letting them off the hook between $300,000 and $400,000 of revenue. We did a lousy job in negotiating that contract. It was said that one of the reasons we had a problem this year, we lost $400,000 in revenue from Jamestown because of students. That's wrong. We lost $200,000 because we lost 20 Jamestown students. We lost another $20,000 because of the poor contract that this school committee negotiated with Jamestown, which includes, or doesn't include, the fact they don't even pay rent on this building today, or 1 penny towards the cost of constructing this building, and was built for them for 300 of their children. Shame on us, because there's $300,000 to $400,000 we should have in our budget today. We can consolidate IT and save $200,000. That's $600,000. So we haven't looked at those things. We haven't looked at all our revenues. We haven't looked at the balance sheet yet. I'll go back to our deficit right now with what the town council appropriated from us was $1.6 million. We're getting almost $600,000 back from the state. That leaves us $1 million short. If we have $1 million, why don't we spend it? Why do we have to make these cuts? By the way, these cuts are a little bit of, a little bit of magic here. In fact, one of the things that I wanted this administration to do is to provide us a budget
Mr. Mudge,
for
I'm going to
fiscal
ask you
year.
to wrap it up.
Excuse me, I'm going to finish now. I have a lot to say, and I haven't finished answering Mr. Biscotti's question.
And
You all
to
have a lot
that,
to
Mr.
say.
Mudge, I'd appreciate it. I understand your passion about Jamestown and how you feel about that whole situation, but if you could just keep it to exactly what cuts, what tangible things we can do to make up the difference. That's what I'm looking
We
at.
can make up the
Actually
difference
gonna allow
by
the
getting
superintendent
$600,000 of
to
revenue.
respond.
Also,
I'm going to yield the floor to
excuse
the
me.
superintendent.
Excuse me, I have
had-
not finished. Now, you
What?
let the
You
superintendent
had 3
talk for 10 minutes, and I'm a school committee member, and I get 3 minutes? Yeah, I'm a school committee member, and I get 3 minutes, okay? And I haven't finished my comments regarding what the superintendent has said. Because,
Well,
now,
I'm gonna
please let me
give
finish.
Dr. Auger some
Please
time to
let me
respond.
finish, Madam President.
I'm going to let
Okay?
Dr. Auger respond to
I have
your
not
comments.
finished. I didn't interrupt him. Don't interrupt me now.
You've
Let's-
had your 3 minutes.
3 minutes,
We'll come
ladies
back
and
to you.
gentlemen, to help out. Imagine that. They want us to talk to you. See, that's the thing. They don't want communications back and forth. Where are we at? What are we, in Germany in 1940?
Mr. Mudge. Dr. Auger.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to let Dr. Auger speak.
Thank you. Mr. Mudge, you have brought these points up over and over and over again.
And we've done nothing over and over again.
You know what? We have done a lot. This district has a contract with Jamestown students that is the envy of the state. Yes, you talk about...
Why did Barrington
Excuse me.
want $13,000 for their
Excuse me.
revenue?
Dr. Auger has the
Excuse me.
floor.
While you like to focus on some money that we may have lost, what people need to know is that we brought in over $1 million in revenue from Jamestown for having an agreement with their students. We have the space in the school, and we use it efficiently, and we bring in those students.
We lost $400,000 last year because of Jamestown.
Dr. Auger has the floor.
You're not telling the whole story.
You're not.
No, you're not.
Okay,
Because-
all right. We need to have a civilized meeting here where one person speaks at a time. Now, right now, Dr. Auger has the floor. I will let everyone know when he has yielded his time.
There is far more gained from our agreement with Jamestown than has ever been taken away, and we are very fortunate to have it. If we didn't have that agreement, add another $1 million to this problem today. So that's what we're looking at. For IT consolidation, I have been through this one 1,000,000 times. We have put proposals forward, this $200,000, this mysterious $200,000, I don't know where it is. Now, when Mr. Draper resigned, and he had been running our buildings for us, and right now he's still doing so on a part-time basis, I called Mr. Embry immediately to talk about consolidation of buildings, because that had been a hot point for our consolidation committee. There have been 2 IT directors from the town who have resigned their position. I did not get a call from the town to consolidate IT under the leadership in this district. So when I keep getting badgered from members of the town council and Mr. Embry and Mr. Mudge and Mr. McGuinn over and over again about how disingenuous this committee is about IT consolidation, I have a plan out there. I haven't heard theirs. And I had never gotten an invitation to have a real discussion where people are open to how I feel as the head of this district and what I need for IT. It's a very important part of what we do, big part of how we communicate. It isn't always perfect, but it's a lot better having it than not having it, and having it done right. And the people here do a good job. And we've even been commended by the company who did this research for consolidation on our financial management of IT. So I hope this puts it to bed. I'm sure it won't for you, Mr. Mudge, because it continues to come up over and over again. So, I just need people to know there are so many areas in a budget that's roughly $60 million, and we've looked at every one of them. And The savings are just not there without, savings are just not there.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak
Yes, I'd like to
this
respond to that,
motion?
please.
Actually, I'm going to allow someone else to speak to the motion.
How about, I would like to speak to comment
would you
about
like
the
to speak
inaccurate
next?
information that was just promulgated.
Mrs. Benson.
Inaccurate information just promulgated.
You know, I'm going to give each person some time, and right now it's Mrs. Benson's time.
Okay, I yield my time to Mr. William Mudge.
Right.
I want you to know, Mrs. Benson,
Thank
you
you.
won't get a second shot
Thank you.
on this motion.
I don't
Thank
need
you.
you to remind me
Okay.
of what I will
Well,
get.
Go ahead, Mr.
Are
Mudge.
we only going to
3
have to, each one of us speak once, and then we're going to vote, or are we going to go back and forth and try to exchange ideas and exchange data, ma'am? That's what this is all about. That's what democracy is about. Okay? Let's look at this budget. I attempted to look at fiscally 2012. I started 2012, and I asked myself this question, okay? If I have to emulate everything, students, teachers, everything, same subjects, and perform that same scenario, same program, same students this year in 2013, I know inflation changes and the raises go up and everything else. I ask the question, what would that cost? You know, I bought my Cadillac last year, or my Volkswagen, or my bicycle. It cost me $100. If I bought that bicycle a year later, what would it cost? 102, 104, 105? I never got that answer. I never got that answer. We talk about we're missing this or we're missing that. Well, why can't we put that in relationship in regards to something we know was tangible? We know we have the people we have working for us. We know the courses we're taking. We know the number of teachers that are teaching. We know the student-teacher ratio. We know those things. Then come back and say, well, look it, based on last year's programs, we got to cut X, Y, and Z because, you know, healthcare went up, or this went up, or that went up. Well, in fact, healthcare went down this year. Went down 9.2%, 7.2%. Okay, so there's a savings, see? There was a savings in the budget this year.
2.2% increase, Mr. Mudge. That's
I
not
think-
going backwards.
No, it went down 2.2% from what was budgeted back in January.
But that's not a reduction. That's not,
Excuse me, when
Mr. Mudge has the floor.
You're right. But when he starts using a $60 million budget saying they have a surplus, that was in there, sir. That was in those numbers. So they were reduced down. So that's what I'm saying, is let's do a good financial job and look at these things. And this is the thing we haven't done with contracting out the custodians. We haven't done our homework. We haven't looked at all the aspects that are going on. And I certainly know we haven't looked at the intrinsic value that we get. You can't put a figure on for the good workers of this town and this school department. Is that not worth something? Okay? For example, we say, well, we don't agree with this cost with health care this year. Well, I go back and say, what did we pay for health care this year? Apparently, we had $1 million budget deficit back in December. Imagine that. How did we correct that? Well, we said we had all these built-in expenditures and everything else. Our costs for the health care for all you folks were the same this past year as it was the year before. Now, when they say we're not going to gain a savings, okay, you are going to gain a savings of $621,000 based on what was budgeted and expended this year. You're going to get a $621,000 savings. Not one from the $60 million budget he talked
Mr.
about.
Mudge, your time is up.
We're basically getting $2 million more from the town, or 2%, and we can add
Mr.
to
Mudge,
that.
I need you to wrap up.
See, let's treat this thing like it should be. We don't have sufficient information to make this. We haven't done a good job with, analyzing this data, and it's premature to
I'm going to go
suggest we
down the
cut
table.
anybody
Mr.
off.
Buscarden, would you like to comment on the motion on the floor?
yes. Thank you. I wish, Mr. Mudge, I wish you could have been a little more specific on the exact areas where you're going to find the cuts, because while
We don't have to make any cuts, that's what I'm saying, John.
Buscarden's time.
while you, instead of, I didn't see where you could, where you clearly and concisely and said, these 5, 6, 7, 9, 2, 3, 4 items are where we can save money.
John, I sent you that. I sent you the whole list back showing we didn't have to cut
Mr. Buscardin's
anything more than we've already cut
Let
in these.
Mr. Buscardin have the
No,
floor.
I sent you it. We don't have to cut one penny.
Mr. Buscardin has the floor.
I asked you to share that with everybody else here this evening, but you failed to do that.
I did, because we don't have to make any more cuts.
My comments are done.
John, I sent it to you.
I know you did.
But I just made the mathematics. 600's coming in, we need another million, we got that in reserve, we don't have to cut anything this year.
Mr. Mudge, your time is up. Mrs. Avanzato.
Just two quick questions. I'd like to ask Mrs. King or Dr. Auger to speak to, number one, the idea of using the surplus, and number two, if we were to accept this award, what would this committee have to do in terms of cuts, and when would we have to do it?
Can you talk about that surplus?
The surplus that we are projecting is not $1 million. And also, using a surplus for a structural deficit is just prolonging a cut that's going to have to be made for the following year.
What is our fiscal year
Mrs. Avanzato has the
12
floor.
budget surplus?
Mrs. Avanzato, do you have
Mary?
another question?
Yeah, my second
You have that, Mary?
question was if...
See, Dr. O'Shea just said don't answer it.
Mrs. Avanzato has a question. It's her time to have the floor.
The second
What is our total budget surplus
Mrs.
today?
Avanzato has the
Please
floor.
answer the question. What is our total budget?
Mrs. Avanzato. All right, go ahead.
The
Mrs.
second
Avanzato.
question was about if we accepted the award, what would the committee need to do and when and...
Well, we need to have a balanced budget for June 30th. Today is
Correct.
June
That's state
25th.
law. That is correct.
So if this set of cuts tonight that will be presented are not accepted, then another set of cuts will need to be formulated and presented to you tomorrow or before June 30th. We must have a balanced budget for June 30th.
Mary, what is the surplus we
Mrs.
have today?
Avanzato has the floor.
Those are my two questions, I'm all set.
Mr. Cerisi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Cerisi has the floor.
Okay, I
Thank
have
you.
a question
Thank
for
you,
Mrs. King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to obviously stick to the discussion on the motion on the floor. And I have a lot to say, and I will say it afterwards when we get to these other agenda items. For now, I will keep the discussion to the motion on the floor. We have in front of us tonight employees whose jobs hang in the balance. I'm not going to waste my time. We have employees in front of us tonight whose jobs hang in the balance. Okay? I'm not going to waste my time, your time, or anyone else's time with getting roped into a back-and-forth bickering with school committee members or administrators. I think the community and the employees deserve better than that. I will say one comment before we vote on this item. I find it amazingly unique how the individual who's proposing this agenda item, proposing not to accept this award, is the same individual who spent the whole budget season on bended knee in front of the town council and in front of the town manager, begging them to cut the school department's budget request by $2 million. Thus, this is the position we're in right now, looking for $1.6 million. So when I hear the political pandering and the doublespeak to the crowd, it amazes me. And folks, if you believe that, if you fall right into that, have at it.
What's the budget surplus, Mr. Cerisi?
Mr. Cerisi
That's
has
the only
floor.
comments. That's the only comments that I'm going to make, and we'll vote on this item, and I'll have comments on these other agenda items. Thank
And
you.
who voted for arbitration, Mr. Cerisi?
Mr. Welch, you have the floor.
A lot of the comments that have been made in the public session would appear that the folks here don't believe that those of us sitting up here don't understand or appreciate the work that's been done by all of our staff, not just ESP. And that's just not true. A year ago, when we were going through the budget session, and people came in after the budget was cast by the town council, we said, "You're at the wrong meeting." We said, "You need to be in front of the town council. They hold the purse strings." We do not. We get left with the money that they say that we can spend. We have to figure out how to do all the things that are required by right and see what's left over. Now, it's very easy to play to the audience. It's very easy to play to the folks who are going to be hurt the most. That's not fair. Believe me when I tell you that we have had very lengthy discussions about the plight of the folks that are on the lowest end of the totem pole. Understand it completely.
Is that why you shut him off from speaking, Dick?
Yeah, right.
Continue, Mr. Welch.
Look, we have frozen pays of the administrative staff where we can. We...
Can I talk to the merit pay issue?
Are you going to let me
Mr.
speak?
Welch, go ahead. You have the floor, Mr. Welch.
No, wait. I never interrupted anyone, so are you going to let me speak? And are you going to stop?
Mr. Welch, you have the floor.
Look, we went to the town council with our hat in our hand, and we went there in October by our schedule, not by theirs, to let the town council be very much aware of the plight that we knew was coming. The federal dollars are gone. The Arab funds are gone. They have a problem. I understand it. We all understand they have a problem. But the fact remains that this group up here that controls the lion's share of the budget that the town has is controlled, the bottom line is controlled by the town council. Don't fault us because we don't have the money to spend.
You do.
And regardless of what the man at the end of the table says to placate to you, for the last 2 years, he stood in front of that town council and said to them, you have to reduce their budget by over $1 million.
That's because we had $2.6 million of surplus.
I've said enough. I'm not going to play to you folks in the audience. We're going to try and do the best we can do by everyone. That's the students, that's the taxpayers, that's the employees. And it's not easy. Thank you.
Lorraine?
Kim, you have to stop.
Madam Chair, could anybody answer what the current surplus is, the budget surplus?
We've now had everyone go down the table and speak once. I'm going to have Lorraine take a roll call vote.
Oh, wait. We're not done with this. We're going to be able to speak once to lay off 26 or 28 people or 30 people and cut them down?
No, this is just on your motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Everyone has gotten to speak on it. Lorraine, could we have a roll call
Could
vote?
you
Motion
read
is
the
to
motion back
accept-
for the public?
Yes.
Madam Chair.
She's reading it. If you can be quiet, please.
The motion is to accept the arbitrator's award. That was made by Mr. Mudge, seconded by Mrs. Benson. Mrs. Benson.
I couldn't hear you. Your mic fell when you were reading the motion back.
This motion is to accept the arbitrator's award. How do you vote?
No.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, yes. Yes.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
I thought we were voting on Mr. Mudge's motion.
It's to accept the arbitrator's award.
Yes.
I vote no.
Larry Cerisi.
No.
William Mudge.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
No.
Richard Welsh.
No.
Linda Avanzado.
No.
Motion,
I'm looking at you.
I'll look at you.
motion fails 5-2.
All right, so we've had a motion on the table, and it has failed to accept of the arbitration award.
Point of order, Madam Chair, please instruct people not to yell out from the crowd, please. We're trying to be respectful here, and we'd ask that you do the same. Please.
I know this is going to be a very emotional meeting for everyone that is
We're really
involved here.
respectful. We'll let them
would
ask us questions.
Excuse me, Mr. Mudge. I understand this is a very emotional meeting here today. It is emotional for all of us, too. None of these decisions are easy to make. I am sorry that that some of the votes may not go as you would like. I would appreciate if we could continue to run the meeting and people would not shout out at us at this time. Okay, we have not accepted the ESP arbitration award.
I make a motion to
So-
dismiss the meeting.
I second.
So we have a motion on the floor to dismiss the meeting. and
Cancel the
it's been
meeting.
Seconded. Lorraine, could we have a roll call vote?
Larry Cerisi.
No.
William Mudge.
No. Yes, yes, excuse me.
Kimberly Page.
No.
Richard Welsh.
Oh.
Linda Avanzado.
a coward.
No.
Mel Boyd Benson.
I'm voting to dismiss the meeting.
That's yes. And John Viscardi.
What did you say?
I said no.
Motion
my vote is
fails
no.
5-2.
Don't do holler at me.
All right, folks, I know this is going to be heated, but let's
You've been
try to
railroaded.
keep
I'll
it
excuse
cool.
myself. Thank you.
Mrs. Benson and Miss. All right, we come to the next item, which is consideration and vote on unilateral changes for the ESP contract. That is B1 through 8.
Listen.
Yes. I'm going to let Dr. Roget speak to what his proposals are for 1 through 8.
These, as I've stated before, everybody, these proposals are not easy ones to make. Excuse me. Please, this is not easy. And I know you know it's not easy for you either. I understand that. Please, we need to be respectful with one another. The changes that I'm proposing to the committee tonight are not new. We've known about them. These have been recommendations from the committee for a year and a half, and I'm sure the members of the bargaining unit are very well aware of them. I'm going to list them, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the monetary impact of each item. After the state aid issue comes in, reducing by $570,000, there's still a little over $1 million left to go. And after having another $1.3 million in other places in the ESP, in the district budget taken care of, the last piece of it is with the concessions that we need to realize from these negotiations. They would include a reduction of 6 full-time equivalent workers to 12 part-time. That would save us roughly $200,000. Eliminate health coverage for folks who work less than 30 hours a week. That would save $155,000. Increase the co-share from the 15% that is budgeted to 20%. That would be $147,000. The teachers pay 20. The administrators 25.
Okay, Dr. Roget has
It's a
the floor.
percentage.
I'll leave.
Dr. Roget has the floor, please.
Do you know what state law is for this?
This would eliminate a 1% increase that we had proposed to a 0. It would eliminate life insurance. The increase would be $67,000, saving the life insurance $37,000. Establish new buyback rates at a savings of $31,000. Eliminate 3 sick days, $22,000 in savings, and 1 personal day, $7,500. This would outsource our custodians at a savings of $600,000, taking into account back pay for vacation accrual at $85,000 that we'd be paying out, and the possibility of estimated unemployment insurance at the rate of possibly $109,000. We would look at in doing this, we would look to keep custodian health care at 4% through the month of July to make sure that the transition works appropriately.
Dr. Ogier, can we take one item at a time that's on the agenda?
Okay.
So the first item that you have on the agenda, B, is the consideration of and vote on the unilateral changes, which basically go from the reducing the full-timers, part-timers through the elimination of one personal day. That's the motion for B on the agenda.
I believe Dr. Ajay was just making sure that everybody understand what the entire proposal was.
Going 1 to 8.
1 to 8, yeah.
Yeah, 1 to 8.
So
Attorney, would you repeat yourself?
The 8 items, she asked that I look to the agenda. The 8 items on the agenda are the increase in the health care cost share, the elimination of health care for employees who work less than 30 hours a week, elimination of life insurance, establish of a new buyback rates for employees who work at 30 hours per week, 30 hours or more per week and do not take health benefits, hiring of part-time paraprofessionals, elimination of one personal day, elimination of 3 sick days, and a 0% salary increase. That is the proposal I have for you tonight. That would, in total, get us to the point of being about $11,000 in the right direction in terms of our budget. And it is that close.
Okay.
Mr. C.
Yes, that's
B
what
is
he said.
once again, under motion for Part B, you are voting on items 1 through 8, which is under Part B. Those items are, as Dr. Ogier explained, the only thing that he wasn't specific about is your buyback rates would go to $2,500 per family and $1,200 per individual. So you're voting on B 1 to 8.
Well, we aren't voting on anything yet. We don't have a motion on the table.
Right, you need to have a motion on the table.
Mr. Cerisi.
I'm going to make a motion just for the first item, B1 at this time. Is that acceptable?
That is acceptable.
Okay.
There is a motion to increase the health care.
That's not my motion.
Okay, make your motion. I'm sorry.
My motion for B1, I understand the recommendation is to increase healthcare costs to 20%. I know when we originally formulated and voted on this budget, we formulated it and voted on it at a rate of 15%, not 20%. And I know some of the thinking on the 15% proposal at the time was our teachers are currently paying 20%, our administrators are currently paying 25%, and the 15% idea was based on the lower pay grade of the employees covered on this contract. So I can't support the recommendation of 20%. I will support and make a motion to move it to 15%.
Is there a second of Mr. Cerisi? So there is, Linda Avanzado has seconded the motion. Before we open that up for discussion, Mrs. King, I'm going to put you on the spot and see if you have any idea of where that puts us. And if you don't at this time, that's fine.
What that means is that we would need to find approximately $147,000 in cuts elsewhere to make up for Mr. Cerisi's motion.
Yes, Mr. Cerisi.
Madam Chair, just from a procedural, and working under the time constraints that we have, I guess I would ask you or defer to legal counsel. We can certainly have that discussion at tomorrow night's meeting on the advertised budget agenda item.
Yes, on tomorrow night's budget, on tomorrow night's agenda, under the budget item, we have additional cuts needed to balance the budget. We do have that item on tomorrow night's agenda.
Thank you.
All right, so there is a motion on the table and a second. Is there any further discussion? No, this is a business meeting, so the citizens' comment was at the beginning, and we don't have it on individual items. So, we have a motion on the table to keep the health care at 15% rather than going up to the 20%, and that would then be $147,000 that we would not be able to cut out of our budget. We'd have to find
I need to
someplace
correct
else.
that motion. That motion is to cut the cost share from 4% to 15, because remember, this bargaining unit is presently at 4, even though we have 15 in the budget. So Mr. Cerisi's motion is to cut, to increase the cost share from 4% to 15%. Is that your motion, Mr. Cerisi?
So,
Is there
Madam
any
Chair,
further discussion? Yes, Mrs. Benson.
Mr. Cerisi's motion is to raise the cost share of the paraprofessionals
Yes, from 4% to 15.
from 4 to 15.
Correct.
Thank you. See
Is
what
there
you're
any other
getting?
further discussion? If there's no further discussion, Lorraine, let's take a roll call vote.
Linda Avanzado.
Yes.
Melvoin Benson.
No, not to increase their health care.
John Bascardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge, he's not here. Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1.
Yet he is
Mr.
free.
Cerisi.
Madam Chair, on B2, elimination of health care for employees who work less than 30 hours per week, that's the recommendation of the superintendent at this time. And just for clarification purposes, I would defer to Ms. King. It's my understanding at this time whether an employee works, under the current contract in place, whether an employee works 1 hour a week or 40 hours a week, they all pay the same for their health care insurance, their co-payment?
They're at 4%. It's not prorated based on the number of hours that they work. So a part-time employee pays the same 4% for the same coverage as a full-time employee pays for 4% for the same coverage.
So if somebody, for example, works 5 hours a week, they're receiving health insurance, individual plan or family plan, whichever they choose, for 4% co-payment at this time?
Correct.
Even if they're just a 5-hour-a-week employee?
Correct.
I will,
Okay, Mr. Cerisi has the floor, please.
I will motion to,
I can clarify that, Mr. Cerisi. There is a graduated scale for part-timers in the present contract. They pay a little bit, but it's not, there is a graduated scale.
Thank you.
Isn't that for new ones?
Yeah, but there is a graduated scale for part-timers.
I apologize.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. Thanks for the clarification. I'll make a motion at this time to approve the superintendent's recommendation for B2.
Is there a
Madam Chair.
second on the motion, and then I will recognize you, Mrs. Benson?
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, there is a motion and a second, Mrs. Benson.
The point I wanted to bring out was, how many hours does state law require a person to work before they are called a full-timer? I think the attorney should answer that if you don't have that information. I'm sure she's...
Different for everybody. There's no state law that says there's one number for full-time and one number for part-time.
What number do we use as a part-time employee in North Kingstown?
What we're using right now, if you pass these unilateral changes, is 30 hours.
And why are we hiring people for 19 and a half hours?
I can't answer that question, Mrs. Benson.
Well, you've made yourself an unofficial member of the school committee.
All right, Mrs. Benson, if you would like to ask a question, that is fine, but
I'd
we
like
don't
to
need to make
direct
a
that
comment.
question to Dr. O.J.
I'm not sure how to answer your question.
I will state it again. When is an employee classified as a part-timer? And I'm sure you're up on state law and what has generally been
In some
practiced.
cases, we have looked to hire people at under 20 hours in order to avoid a health insurance copay. That has happened. It's not just a union or a non-union thing. I mean, it's not a secret.
Well, why do you see it necessary to go from 20 to 30? That's for you. If you're going to...
Again, these items were put into negotiation before I was even part of the negotiating committee. So it was this committee that decided to put this in, of which you were included.
Right,
So,
you were not part of
I'm
it.
not sure that I'm the right person to ask that particular question, but I think I do understand the answer, and I think you do too.
I don't understand the answer because you're recommending that we lay off and we go from 20 hours to 30 hours.
No, I believe the motion on the table is for elimination of health care for employees who work less than 30 hours, not
That's what
necessarily.
I'm talking about, and it used to be 20 hours. And I wanted from him why they want to raise it, or since from you, Madam President, why you want to raise it to 30 hours. Because you stated
Because it's difficult for us to afford it at 20.
you can't afford it,
No.
and they pay. And in arbitration, they offer to pay more. But you can't afford it. Is that the case?
Is there anything else that you would like to speak on, Mrs. Benson?
Yes. Please observe, you vote in November.
Mr. Welch.
I want to direct this to Attorney Carroll. I'm reading through the arbitrator's award on page 22 and 23, and it appears that the arbitration award that we didn't accept would have awarded a 25% co-share for part-time employees, and for those over 30 hours also paying 25. And we're talking about 15 here.
Doing better than the arbitrator award.
We didn't accept the arbitrator's award, but we're trying to, the motion here is to try and reduce it to what we had originally tried to budget for. I have to support this vote.
All right, if there are no further comments, then let's take a roll call vote. Lorraine?
Melvoin Benson.
No.
John Buscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to B3, eliminative life insurance. Mr. Cerisi.
Madam Chair, again, just for clarification purposes, it's my understanding this is the administrative recommendation for the elimination of life insurance. Just for clarification purposes, I'll defer to Attorney Carroll, as neither the superintendent nor the current business administrator were here during the last round of teacher contract negotiations. It's my understanding that during negotiations with the NEA bargaining unit, we were successful at coming to a mutual agreement to eliminate life insurance from that contract.
Yes, under the teacher's contract, we eliminated life insurance.
The teacher's contract no longer contains life insurance.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll make a motion at this time to accept the superintendent's recommendation for elimination of life insurance.
Second. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there discussion? Mr. Welch.
Again, I'd point to the arbitrator's award that we did not pass, and I'll read right from it. The school committee proposed elimination of life insurance for all employees in the bargaining unit. The value of this item is $33,925. The arbitration award is this proposal. And again, the arbitrator didn't think that we should keep it.
Is there any other comments? All right,
I have one comment.
Mrs. Benson.
I would like to comment on the fact that maybe we should not keep it if you're going to overcharge people for their life insurance for many years. And I did discover it myself. The trust is what got me to where I am, and to the public. They have overcharged me for my life insurance for many years, and they're trying to paint it that I'm getting money from them. They took my money, and the trust told me that we belong to the Intermore Trust, that they should refund. So you see what you're dealing with up here. And no,
All right, I believe that situation was rectified, Mrs. Benson, for you and any other employee who were overcharged.
Oh,
So
you
Lorraine,
have?
yes, we voted to rectify that. So Lorraine, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion is to eliminate life insurance. Larry Cerisi?
Yes.
Kimberly Page?
Yes.
Richard Welsh?
Yes.
Linda Avanzado?
Yes.
Mel Boyd Benson?
No.
John
People work
Discardin?
for a company and don't
Yes.
offer life insurance.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
Ask yourself, do you get your
Mr.
life
Reese?
insurance on your job?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving to B4, establishment of new buyback rates for employees who work 30 hours or more per week and do not take health benefits. Again, just for clarification purposes, a little rhetorical, my understanding is employees who we do not, who choose not to take life insurance, they receive a check from the district in lieu of the life insurance that they're, health insurance that they're entitled to. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Ms. Carroll, my understanding is that this, again, in the last teacher's contract that was negotiated, this was also an item that we were able to come to mutual agreement with on the NEA?
Yes,
With
that's
the NEA?
Yes,
to-
that's correct.
Okay.
And what the superintendent is looking for tonight is to establish new buyback rates, $2,500 for family and $1,200 for individuals, so that should be your motion.
Okay. And it's also my understanding that in the arbitrator's decision, that was
Yes,
what he had
that's correct.
awarded, exactly what we're proposing tonight. Okay. So, I'm sorry, the numbers again on that were?
$2,500 for family, $1,200 for individual.
Okay. So at this time, I'll make a motion to support the recommendation of the revised health benefits buyback for $2,500 for family and $1,500,
$1,200.
I'm sorry, $1,200 for individuals.
Second.
Lorraine, were you able to get that motion down?
Yes, I did. 25 for families and 1,200 for individuals. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the item? All right, Lorraine, could you take, yes?
I have a question.
Yes, Mrs. Benson.
I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Cerisi.
State your question.
And the attorney, if he can't answer.
Madam Chair, just so you know ahead of time, I'm not going to engage in a Q&A with committee members. The questions go through the chair, and the questions are to be asked of legal counsel and the administration. I'm just one member of this board, so.
Mrs. Benson, what is your question?
My question is, if he recommended the amount of money, how did he come to that amount for the buyback? And if they don't work 30 hours, will they be able to participate in a buyback?
Not according to the motion, because you've eliminated eliminated health insurance for under 30 hours, so therefore they're not eligible for the buyback either.
So the motion is moot, am I
No,
correct?
the motion
Work 30
is,
hours or more.
Mr. Cerisi's motion is to decrease the buyback to $2,500 for family and $1,200 for individual for employees who work 30 hours or more per week and do not take health benefits.
So, in other words, Madam Attorney, you have to work 30 hours to be classified as a full-time employee?
Yes, that's correct.
So, let me put that down. 30 hours and you're full-time.
That's correct.
And anyone that doesn't work 30 hours, even if they wanted to buy health insurance, they would not be eligible.
They wouldn't receive it free of charge.
We're not giving it free of charge to no one. It's only when you work for the state you get that rate.
Not true. They pay 20%, 25%.
So, in order to be full-time in North Kingstown paraprofessional, you have to work 30 hours.
Yes, that's already been asked and answered, Mrs. Benson. This is, proposal is exactly what the arbitrator had made a recommendation in the arbitration award.
I'm asking the attorney.
And I can answer that, too. Like I said, she's already answered it for you quite a few times, so.
She is the attorney for the school committee, and I'm a duly elected school committee member.
And
I
she's
expect
answered
an
you.
answer.
She's answered you.
So you're speaking for everybody now.
Mrs. Benson, do you have any other questions?
Yes, I have a question for the attorney.
Okay, and your
What
question's been answered.
constitute a full-time employee in the paraprofessional rank?
Mrs. Benson, in the arbitration award, first of all, when we went to arbitration, we asked that full-time be established at 30 hours per week. The arbitrator did rule that full-timers would be 30 hours per week, and anyone under 30 hours would be part-timers.
Okay.
So we've now established that 30 hours per week is full-time, anything less than 30 is part-time.
But you voted down the arbitrator's decision. Thank you. So what happens in that case, attorney?
That's why the school committee is now making unilateral changes and going through each of the items one by one and voting for them or voting against them or modifying them.
All right, so Mrs. Benson, do you have any other questions?
No, I'd like to hear, are you with NEA?
I'm only taking questions from you, Mrs. Benson. Do you have any other questions?
Well, the next question is, we won't have any full-time employees. Thank you.
All right. Is there any other comment on the motion on the floor? Lorraine, could we have a roll call vote?
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Melvoin Benson.
No.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
We now come to B5. The proposal is the hiring to be able to hire part-time professionals. This would potentially, paraprofessionals, I'm sorry, part-time paraprofessionals. This would yield us a savings of approximately $198,000. Mr. Welch.
I'd like to make a motion to support the administration's recommendation on the hiring of 12 part-time paras, as outlined in the summary of savings.
Do I have a second on this motion?
Senator, are you listening?
Do I have a second on Mr. Welch's motion?
You have a second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Mrs. Benson.
So what you've done, you've made everybody 30 hours, and then you turn around and want to hire 12 part-time.
Mrs. Benson, what is that your question? Are you directing it at the superintendent?
I'm directing it at anybody that want to give a straight answer.
Okay. Dr. Ajay, would you like to?
This would reduce 6 paraprofessionals, 6 FTEs, and replace with 12 part-time paraprofessionals.
So we're going to have a school department with 12 part-time paraprofessionals.
Yes.
What a clever way to put it.
Do you have another question, Mrs. Benson?
No, that's a
Thank
very
you.
clever way.
All right. Does anybody else have any comments on the motion on the floor? All right, Lorraine, if we could take a roll call vote, please.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Melvoin Benson.
No.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
We now come to B6, the elimination of one personal day. Mr. Cerisi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification purposes, the current contract contains...
I'm not walking out.
The current contract contains 3 personal days,
stripes
and
on.
to anticipate your question,
The current contract contains 3 personal days. The contract that the NEA NK currently operates under is 2 personal days?
that's correct.
Okay. And the recommendation of the superintendent is to basically coincide with the arbitrator has awarded, which was to reduce by 1 personal day from 3 personal days to 2 personal days, which will coincide with the teacher's contract.
That's correct.
Okay, so I will make a motion to support the arbitrator's recommendation to reduce from 3 personal days to 2 personal days.
Is there a second? Okay, there's a second on the motion. Is there any further discussion?
Because that vote should be divided into 2 sections and vote on them
No.
separate.
There is just one motion
What
on
did
the
you
floor.
say? I didn't hear. I'm hard of hearing.
I
Speak
said-
through your mic.
I said no. The motion is on the floor to eliminate one personal day.
And I asked the question, could the motion be voted on in two sections? Voted on the recommendation of the arbitrator and the recommendation of the superintendent.
And I said, no, they're both the same, and that's, the motion on the floor is just to eliminate one personal day. All right. Lorraine, could we take a roll call vote?
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Melvoin Benson.
No.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1.
That brings us to B7, the elimination of 3 sick days. Is there a motion on B7? Yes, Mrs. Denson.
I make a motion that we do not accept B7, the elimination of sick days.
Is there a second on Mrs. Benson's motion? All right, hearing no second, the motion fails. Is there any other motions on item B7?
Didn't expect this.
I move to accept the superintendent's recommendation.
Mr. Buscardin has made a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation of elimination of 3 sick days. Is there a second on the motion?
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Cerisi.
Sorry, I just have a few questions on this. We're eliminating 3, what is the total number that on the current contract?
Presently, between sick days and family sick days, is 18.
18. And what was, in the arbitrator's award on this was? Sorry.
I don't recall.
It was not addressed.
I don't think he addressed it.
I don't think he addressed it.
So this wasn't an item?
No.
Okay.
What do the teachers got?
So currently, it's 18 in the current contract, and the teacher's contract is 15?
Yeah.
I believe it is
It's
15.
18, it's between sick days and family sick days, it's a total of 18.
Right. And then the current, okay, I will make a motion to support the recommendation of elimination of 3 sick days.
Lorraine, do we
There
already
is
have- we already
motion
have-
on the
Yeah, we
floor
already have the
already.
motion on the
Motion
floor.
on the
So
floor
I'm
is
just
to
taking
Made by
accept
John
the
Biscardin,
superintendent's
seconded by Dick Welch.
recommendation.
Davanzado.
I just want clarification. Are we sure that it's 18 and not 15
Am I sure that
already?
it's 15 and 3? Yes, I am.
Okay. It's not?
So
15 regular and 3 family. I mean, family sick, yes.
All right, is there any further discussion on the motion? All right. Lorraine, could we take a roll call vote?
There you go.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, if we could please have quiet so we could have the roll call vote, please.
Tim,
Yes.
I need to admonish them.
Yeah, I need to have quiet in the audience, please, so we can have the roll call vote. Lorraine?
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Melvoin Benson.
No, I don't know what I'm voting on. Thank you.
So about that.
Linda.
And you don't
She
either.
said yes. She got it.
Okay, have we gotten everyone?
I got her.
All right,
Yep.
I'm sorry. All right, now that brings
5-1.
us to B8. The superintendent has recommended a 0% salary increase for a savings of $67,461. All right, I'm going to ask for quiet in the audience, please. We've finished with the time of citizens' comments. All right. Do I have a motion? All right. Do we need to take a recess? Mr. Cerisi.
Madam Chair, I just defer to Ms. King on this item, and I apologize if I don't have the figures available to you.
Sir, do you have a
What does each percent, what does each percent represent? In other words, if we were at 0%, it recommends this figure. If we were at 1%, it represents how much additional cost to the district.
That's the number that we have right here, Mr. Cerisi. So for all members, 1% would represent $67,461.
The recommendation is 0%, and the arbitrator's award was?
Zero.
Zero.
Okay. I actually, I know I'm going to, maybe have some disagreement with my colleagues here, but I believe when we originally discussed this contract and discussed budgeting for this contract, we did discuss 1%. And I think how we arrived at that figure was, it was representative of what was awarded or negotiated with the NEA, NK, the teachers union, in their last round of contract negotiations. We did reach an agreement, mutual agreement with them for a 1% increase. So, I know we've done that, and I know on the administrators who have received an increase, it's also been 1%, and I know we've tried to maintain some consistency there. If you want to come take my seat, you can have it, you can.
All right, Mr. Cerisi has the floor, please. Please let Mr. Cerisi continue.
So we have tried to maintain that consistency, although we have contracts expiring at separate times. So, I can't support the recommendation here, and I can't support the arbitrator's recommendation of 0%. I know this will mean an additional $67,000 in the budget that we will need to find at tomorrow night's meeting when we discuss the budget, but I think we can try to do some work with that there. So I will make a motion to agree a 1% salary increase.
I'll second that motion.
All right, this is for discussion now. We have a motion on the floor in a second. Mrs. Avanzado.
I recall that discussion as well, when we discussed the teachers and negotiated with them 1%. And when we increased the employees in the last year, it has been at a 1% rate. So I would support that. Will mean more cuts.
All right, if there's no further discussion, I will remind the committee that you have also not voted to go with one of the other recommendations. So right now you're at
$15,000.
Right, $15,000. So that's just a reminder. Lorraine, can we have a roll call vote?
Melvoy Benson.
No.
No.
It's all right, that's okay.
Ken.
Yes.
John
I'm sorry, Mr. Biscardin, I missed you. I apologize.
Oh, go ahead.
That's all right. I realize this is a very difficult thing to do, and it's very it's difficult to make these decisions. And what I struggle with is, all right, so now where did the $215,000 come from? What student activity shall we cut?
All right. This is not question. Mr. Biscardin has the floor.
If and when that is an opportunity, I would welcome a discussion on that. However, we do not have that opportunity in front of us right now. There are contracts in place that we cannot. First, I didn't interrupt any of you people when you got up to the microphones. I would expect a modicum of respect right back. I've done nothing but polite with everybody that's come up here.
Mr. Biscardin.
It's about half-truths and inaccuracies. I'd like a little bit of respect right back. I'm only going to take a couple minutes, so please, if you don't mind. Thank you. This is not an easy thing to do. If it doesn't happen here, it has to happen somewhere else. If it doesn't come out of this left pocket, it's got to come out of the right pocket. I understand what you're going through. Not entirely, but I understand it. My concern is that come tomorrow, we have to come up with another $215,000 out of the students, out of the children, who everybody in here wants the best for. Go ahead and chuckle, because sometimes I wonder if that's where your heart's at, too. So it goes both ways. It goes both ways, all right? How dare you?
Mrs. Avanzato.
Just a,
Mrs. Avanzato, you have the floor. I would ask that Mrs. Avanzato be allowed to have the floor.
just a couple of points that this is a multi-year situation. I've been on this committee for 4 years, but I've been going to school committee meetings since way before that time. And we have been cutting this budget every single year, and it's been getting deeper and deeper and deeper. We've cut all kinds of things. If you've been here, you've seen us do it. We've cut administrative positions. We've held administrative positions to zero, multi-years in a row. We've cut programs. We've cut teachers. We've cut librarians. I think you all know that we have cut from every area. We have tried to balance it out as much as we could. Not particularly an easy task. But, you know, every one of us has a responsibility as a citizen in this town to advocate for what you want to the town council. We're just 7 people. We've done what we could to try and get our funding, but we've been held to zero year after year after year, while our costs increase. So at some point, we've got to look for where we can get the money from. You would be in the same position if you were sitting up here. And in our private sector lives, we're all taking hits. I got news for you, because that's the economy right now. And none of us enjoy doing this. None of us look to do this, but this is the job that's in front of us right now. So we've worked very hard to try and balance as much as we could, as I said. The other point I wanted to make is there were options put before this group that did not involve outsourcing. We worked, and I know you worked as well to come up with something, and obviously the cuts were very deep from your side. We understand fully that you are not the highest paid employees in this district. And we try to keep that in mind. That's why administrators are 25%. That's why then teachers are 20%. You know, everyone at this table has suffered these kinds of hits at their own jobs. They've gone up to 20%, 25%. It's happened to everybody. So I just wanted to make it clear that we've been working to try and keep it as equal as we could. But the town, in my opinion, going up on their side of the budget, there's been very little effort made to keep their side of the budget level, the way we've made the effort on this side. Thank you.
All right, so there is a motion to table and a second. Is there anyone further who would like to have
Can't hear you.
any other comments on the...
We can't hear you.
Sorry. Lorraine, could you read the motion, please? It's on the floor.
The motion is to approve a 1% salary increase. This is Mr. Cerisi's motion. Melvoin Benson.
No, 1%.
Don Biscardin.
1% is what they asked for, Mel.
I'm not voting for nothing.
Of course not. Yes, I'll vote for the 1% increase.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
No.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-2.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the considerations on Part B. That brings us to item C. Yes, Mr.
Madam
Cerisi.
Chair, I would ask if we could just have a 5-minute recess before we finish the agenda.
Yes, let's take a vote on a 5-minute recess. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those.
No.
Okay. 5-minute recess. To order. We are now back in session of the June 25th, 2012 North Kingstown School Committee. I will report that we had somebody come up here tonight and tell us that Elizabeth Beisel has gotten number 1 in the 400 IM, so she will be going on to London. All right, that brings us to item C of our agenda, the consideration and vote on the termination of all custodial positions. Am I correct that we are talking about 26 positions?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. This has probably been the most difficult item that is on our agenda tonight. The other ones were difficult, and this one is equally as difficult.
The custodial company, as people are aware, is GCA, and we are looking to approve of that contract. We are looking to make sure that before that contract is signed, that it include a probationary period of some kind where we can evaluate the work that they're doing and have a clause where we can pull out of the agreement if we see fit. We also would like to make sure that that agreement has that the current employees, our current custodians, would have a guaranteed job with GCA at what they are calling their enhanced wage. They have a fair market wage, which would go to new employees, but for current employees, there would be an enhanced wage, and that we would include a clause that we could pull out of the agreement in the event that legal action of any kind would stop or delay this from happening.
It's my understanding this GCA was not our lowest bidder when we went out to bid over a year ago. We had other lower bidders, but we took GCA bid because they had a better offering of benefits to our employees. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
And I'm also, Mrs. King, am I correct that of our 26 employees, we do have that 24 of them are vested right now in their pension plans?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. All right. If that is the way the committee wants to think, the first thing that has to be done is you have to terminate all the employees from their custodial positions here at North Kingstown, and you have to do that first before you decide to vote on any sort of awarding the contract to GCA. So that would be the steps that would be taken, is that you would have to first vote to terminate all 26 of the positions. Then the next thing that could be done is that you could then vote to have the health care extended at the 4% rate during the month of July, and then you can vote on if you're going to consider awarding the contract to GCA. This would not be tonight that we would, if this is the path the committee decides to take, it would not be tonight that you would vote on any sort of contract, because that would still involve further negotiations. So I just want to make sure that I point that out. Mr. Welch.
I just want to ask two questions to have it clarified. First of all, in the hiring of the employees that we currently have, GCA's only requirement is that they pass the police exam?
They have to pass a BCI check. That's correct. And they have given us their word that everybody will be hired as long as they pass a BCI check.
We will have it in writing.
Be part of the contract.
It'll be part of the contract.
All right, so let's make sure
I have one question.
We have
Mr. Welch has the floor.
Okay, we have received verbal authority from the company that everybody will be hired as long as they pass a BCI check. And one of the stipulations in the contract with GCA will be that everybody will be hired as long as they pass a BCI check.
Now, that stands for our current employees.
Stands for our current employees.
New
yes.
employees is something different.
That's totally different, yes.
Now, it's also my understanding, if you would please correct me or concur, that the recent situation that privatized in Cranston is similar to what they're going to be offering?
In Cranston, they privatized the food service workers.
Oh, it was not the janitorial?
No, it was not.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Benson. Mrs. Benson, you have the floor.
Do we have janitors working presently that couldn't pass the BCI test?
Well, I don't think any of us know that, Mrs. Benson. I would hope that all of our custodians would be able to pass a BCI test. I mean, check, or that could bring up other issues.
I don't have that number in front of me.
All right, I'm going to ask that the questions are up here at the table, please. I'm going to ask, please, that the questions be confined here at the table.
Mr. Welch, you had asked me about Cranston custodians. What happened with the Cranston custodians is they took such a substantial pay cut that the Cranston School Department decided not to privatize.
Thank you.
Do you have an answer for the East Greenwich? Back.
All right, I would ask that the... Mrs. Benson,
$5 an hour.
Is there any other questions before, or is there any motion on the table?
I move to consider of and vote on the termination of all custodial positions as outlined in the superintendent's recommendation.
Second on that motion. Second. There is a second on the motion. So is further discussion on the motion. Mr. Cerisi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a couple of quick comments before we vote on this motion. As I mentioned earlier, or as it was mentioned earlier by some citizens during public comments, we're not West Warwick, we're not Central Falls. You're right, we're not. And you know what? Quite frankly, those two school districts received more funding in their last budgets from their council and state aid than North Kingstown did. Believe it or not. We have three sources of funding for the school district: state aid, local aid, which is your car taxes and your property taxes, and various state and federal grants. That's the money we have to work with. In East Greenwich and Cranston, both school districts went through similar exercises of looking to outsource custodians. Fortunately, there was considerable concessions made, and outsourcing in both those school districts were averted. The contract negotiating team for the school district had put many proposals forward during these negotiations, which called for no outsourcing. Unfortunately, an agreement could not be made. The cuts that were being asked of the bargaining unit, concessions that were being asked of the bargaining unit, was substantial, no doubt about it. But we did put forward proposals that called for no outsourcing. In our last negotiated teacher's contract with the NEA, Ms. Argentieri, there was $1.5 million in savings during the first year of that contract alone. And as you may recall this evening, I went through each item, comparing how we were able to come to a mutual negotiated agreement in each one of those areas with the NEA-NK. But yet, we were able to do so with this bargaining unit. You represent unions around the state, not just in North Kingstown. I have to give credit where credit is due. A lot of our teachers, a lot of our support staff live in this town. They understand the local climate. They understand what's going on. And some concessions were made in recognition of that. You look at things globally on the state level and the other bargaining units that you're going to be representing in upcoming negotiations. Not just on this local level, how it impacts us, how it impacts these kids, how it impacts the people living in this town. Fortunately, your lead wasn't followed when we negotiated the last contract. You can yell out from the audience all night. Very unprofessional, and you call yourself an attorney and a negotiator. So I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
All right, is there any other discussion on the motion? Lorraine, could we take a roll call vote?
That's right.
All
That's
right.
right.
That's
That's
all
right.
All right, I'm going to ask,
That's right.
I'm going to ask for the floor back. Lorraine.
I represent
could you
the whole town, not one group.
Lorraine, could
Mr.
you-
Cerisi, I think your motion is to approve the termination of all custodial... Oh, Mr. Boscarden. To approve the termination of all custodial positions, and that includes, that's 26 positions. Is that your motion, Mr. Boscarden?
That is my motion.
All right.
Thank you. Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
I just said that was my
Hey, let's
motion,
have-
sir.
Let's have quiet, please. Lorraine, please take the roll call vote.
Larry Cerisi says
Yes.
yes. Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzado. Yes. Mel Boyd Benson.
No
John Discarded.
termination.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1.
Remember November.
All right, so the next item is C1, consideration of vote of extension of health insurance. Mrs. Avanzado.
Motion to
Don't want it.
July 1.
July 1st.
Mrs. Avanzado, you have the
motion for extension of health insurance at the 4% rate during July.
floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
So there is a motion to extend health care
Because we're getting money from the SIP. Please be quiet. It's very unprofessional of you, okay? Please. Please.
All right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Lorraine, could we take a roll call vote, please?
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzado.
Yes.
Mel Boyd Benson.
No.
Of course not.
John Biscardin.
Who's speaking for me?
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
I'm not
Motion
accepting
passes
any future
5-1.
dividends, Mr. Wells.
Motion to adjourn.
No.
Are we going to award custodial, the custodial contract to anyone now that we have fired?
I thought that you said that we are not in a position to do that at this time.
Right now, we're not in a position to award the contract. We need to review it tomorrow. We didn't do it thoroughly yet. So we're going to ask that you do this.
Can we table item D until tomorrow night?
Second.
Well, do you want to award the bid tonight,
We can award
pending
the
the
bid
approval
tonight.
of the
That's right.
contract tomorrow night?
Okay, I'll
So we
make that
can do
motion.
that.
I'll second.
All right, so
Yeah,
let's make sure this motion is clarified.
You're awarding the bid to GCA this evening, pending the awarding of a contract tomorrow evening.
Is that your motion, Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All right, Lorraine, could you call a roll call vote, please?
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzado.
Yes.
Mel Boyd Benson.
No.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1.
All right, now I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Meeting is adjourned.